तन्मयतया तरवो विनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। हे श्री गुरु ज्ञानदीनबन्धो स्वानन्ददाता करुणैकसिन्धो वृन्दावनासीन हितावतार प्रसीद राधा प्रणय प्रचार त्रायस्व भो जगन्नाथ गुरो संसारवन्निना दग्धं मां कालदष्टं च त्वामहं शरणं गतः। राधा सम्मुख संशक्तिं सखी संग निवासिनीं तामहं सततं वन्दे गुरुरूपां परां सखीं। वैराग्ययुक्तभक्तिरसं प्रयत्नैरपायन् माम् अनभिप्समन्धं कृपां बुधिर्यः परदुःखदुःखी सनातनं तं प्रभुमाश्रयामि। First of all, offer my millions of obeisances to lotus feet of Asmati Guru Pad Padma Nitila Prishta Jat Guru Shishimat Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Then also offer obeisances to lotus feet of Tridendi Sannyasi Shishimat Bhaktivedanta Dandi Maharaj Ji, Namnishta Santa Shri Aniruddhas Prabhu Ji, all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are gathered here, please accept my humble obeisances. So we are discussing wonderful text called Shri Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavan is giving very valuable instructions to Arjuna. Now Bhagavan is telling, Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayatiha aghayurindriya ramo moham partha sajivati. Evam, thus pravartitam, established by the Vedas, chakra, cycle, does not, anuvartayati, adopt, iha, in this life, yaha, one who, agayuhu, whose life is full of sins, indriya ramaha, satisfied in sense gratification, mogham, uselessly, partha, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, sahahi jivati, lives. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow this prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of sin. For a person delighting only in the senses lives in vain. The Maimonides philosophy of work very hard and enjoy sense gratification is condemned herein by the Lord. Therefore, for those who want to enjoy this material world, the above mentioned cycle of performing yajnas is absolutely necessary. One who does not follow such regulations is living a very risky life, being condemned more and more. By nature's law, this human form of life is especially meant for self-realization in either of the three ways, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. There is no necessity of rigidly following the performances of the prescribed yajnas for the transcendentalists who are above vice and virtue. But those who are engaged in sense gratification require purification by the above mentioned cycle of yajna performances. There are different kinds of activities. Those who are not Krishna conscious are certainly engaged in sensory consciousness. Therefore, they need to execute pious work. The yajna system is planned in such a way that sensory conscious persons may satisfy their desires without becoming entangled in the reaction of sense gratificatory work. The prosperity of the world depends not on our own efforts but on the background element of the Supreme Lord, directly carried out by the demigods. Therefore, the yajnas are directly aimed at the particular demigod mentioned in the Vedas. Indirectly, it is the practice of Krishna consciousness. Because when one masters the performance of yajnas, one is sure to become Krishna conscious. But if by performing yajnas one does not become Krishna conscious, such principles are counted as only moral codes. One should not therefore limit his progress only to the point of moral codes, but should transcend them to attain Krishna consciousness. So very nice purport here. We study Srila Gurudev's purport. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayatiya aghayurindriya ramo mogham partha sajivati. Evam, thus pravartitum, set into motion, chakram, the cycle of karma, na anuvartayati, does not follow. Here in this world, Yaha, one who, agayu, a life of sin, indriya ramaha, delights in the senses, mogham, in vain, partha, a son of Prutha, sa, he, jivati, lives. O Partha, in this world, one who does not follow this cycle of action as prescribed in the scriptures, delights in the senses, and entangles and engages in sinful life. Thus he lives in vain. Sarartha Vashini. By not engaging in this cycle, the faults of irregularity arises. The present verse, beginning with Evam, is spoken to give an understanding of this point. Chakra or cycle means an ordered series of events. For example, clouds and rain come from sacrifices. Good grains come from rains, and from grains come mankind, who again perform sacrifice, which produces rain clouds, and so on. So one who does not engage in sacrifice to continue this cycle is a sinful person. Who does not go to who does not go to hell? Only one who performs sacrifice or yajna does not go to hell. Sarartha Varshini Prakashika Vritti. Parmeshwara, the Supreme Lord, has established the cycle of karma to fulfill the desires of the jivas. Consequently, one who does not perform sacrifice, which perpetuates the cycle of the universe, becomes implicated in sin and goes to hell. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, O Partha, they who are qualified to engage in action with a desire for the fruits, kamya karma, but who do not perform sacrifice to perpetuate the cycle of the universe, become servants of their senses and engage in sinful life. Thus they live in vain. The significance is that in Nishkan Karma Yoga, selfless action, which is offered to Bhagavan, sin or piety are not considered. Scriptures, the scriptures has thus established this as the most suitable path to attain pure transcendental bhakti to Bhagavan. A person following this path easily becomes pure at heart and free from material contamination. Those who have not acquired the qualification to offer the fruits of their selflessly performed duty to Shri Bhagavan are always swayed by the material desires and sensual urges. Thus, they engage in sinful acts. The only way to reduce this sinful tendency is to perform pious action. Those who have acted sinfully should take shelter of the process of atonement. The performance of sacrifice is certainly religious or pious activity. That which is auspicious for all living entities, jivas, and conducive for the harmonious development of the cycle of the universe is called punya or pious deeds. The performance of pious deeds destroys the unavoidable sins that are born of panchasuna, the five places where a sin, the five places where a householder unavoidably kills animals. The fireplace, the slab for grinding condiments, the broom, pestle, and mortar, and water pot. As long as the performer of yajna protects the interest and welfare of the universe, whatever can be accepted for his happiness and personal maintenance becomes part of the sacrifice and is counted as piety. The unseen controllers who cause auspiciousness for the universe are the specific demigods born from the potency, Shakti of Shri Bhagavan. By satisfying them with the offerings they desire and gaining their favor, one receives their grace and becomes pleased. Thus, all of one's sins are destroyed. This is called a karma chakra, the cycle of action. Therefore, what is accepted as karma in the form of worship of demigods is called Bhagavad karma. Whoever performs these acts thinking that they are in accordance with material regulations are simply moralists. They are among those who do not offer their actions to Sri Vishnu. For jivas who have the proper eligibility, it is auspicious to offer all actions to Bhagavan Vishnu. Verse 17. Yastu atmaratireva syad atmatruptascha manava atmani eva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Yeah, verse 2. However, Atmarati, delighting in the self. Eva, certainly. Syat is. Atma, self. Trupta, satisfied. Cha, and. Manava, the man. Atmani, in the self. Eva, certainly. Cha, and. Santushta, satisfied. Tasya, for him. Karjam, duties. Na, do not. Vidyate. A person who delights in the self, however, and who remains contented and fully satisfied has no duties to perform. So far, it has been explained that those who are unable to perform action, karma, in a selfless manner should perform action with the intention of enjoying its fruit, sakam karma. Those who are situated on the platform of jnana or realized knowledge have pure hearts, so they never engage in performing routine repetitive action. The next two verses, beginning here with yes to, are spoken to explain this. Atmarati means those who take pleasure in the self. If a person is satisfied within the self, would he even be slightly satisfied with external sense objects? In response to Bhagavan says, one who is satisfied within has no need for external sense pleasures and is therefore not obliged to perform prescribed duties. Sarada Vashni Prakashita. Living entities who are absorbed in the cycle of karma, which has been described above, perform action knowing it to be their duty. However, those who can discriminate between the self and inner objects engage solely in the cultivation of the self. They remain content within the self because they are able to take pleasure in the self, Atmaram, and can satisfy all their desires in the self, Aptakam. Such exalted personalities are of two types. Those who seek the soul through transcendental knowledge, Jnana Yogis, and those who cultivate the path of pure love for the Supreme Lord, Bhakti Yogis. Personalities like the four Kumaras, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat, are considered to be in the first category, while personalities like Sri Narada fall in the second. They do not perform their prescribed duty, although they know it is obligatory. Instead, they maintain their lives by performing action that is tolerable to them. Becoming free from the cycle of karma, they search for peace in the form of love for Bhagavan. Although they perform all sorts of activities, they perform no material action. Therefore, their activity is not called karma, but in accordance with the specific qualification, it is called jnana or bhakti. It is also said in Mundakopanishad 3.1.4, Atma Krida Atmarati Kriyavan Esha Brahma Vidam Varishtha. Those who take pleasure in the self, whose attachment is in the self, and who are active only in the self, are the best among those who know the Vedas. So, is a purport by Srila Gurudev. यस्तु आत्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मनेव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते. One who too, but Atmarati, taking pleasure in the self, eva, certainly, syat, remains, Atmatrupta, such illuminated, cha, and Anava, a man, Atmani, in the self, eva, only, cha, and Santushta, perfectly satiated. Tasya, his karjam, duty, not, does not, vidyate, exist. One who is, however, taking pleasure in the self, who is illumined in himself, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the self only, fully satisfied for him, there is no duty. A person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed, an effect of many kinds of yajnas performances. By such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme His duty thus becomes self-eliminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic intentions. Such a Krishna person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material elements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. Verse number 18, Naiva tasya कृतेऽर्थो न कृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चित् अर्थव्यपाश्रय न never eva certainly tasya his krutena by discharge of duty artha purpose na not akrutena without discharge of duty either in this world kashchana whatever na never cha and asya of him sarvabhuteshu among all living beings kashchit any artha purpose Tapasraya, taking shelter of. A self-reliant man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. A self-realized man is no longer obliged to perform any prescribed duty, save and except activities in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not inactivity either, as will be explained in the following verses. A Krishna conscious man does not take shelter of any person, man, or demigod. Whatever he does in Krishna consciousness is sufficient discharge of his obligation. Verse 18. नित्यस्य कृतेनार्थो न कृते कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चित् अर्थभाषया न no ever indeed tasya of one who takes pleasure in self krutena performing one's prescribed action artha has purpose to be attained no not akrutena by not performing one's prescribed duty here in this world. Kashana, whatsoever, no, not, cha, and asya, he has, sarva bhuteshu, in all the living beings in the world. Kashchit, any, artha, necessary, vipashraya, take shelter. For a person who is satisfied in the self, there is no plan, there is no past benefit to achieve by performing prescribed duties in this world, nor is there any fault incurred by not performing them. For attaining his purpose, he does not feel the need to depend on any living being in the universe. Sarartha Vashitika. Krita refers to a person who is not obliged to perform his prescribed duty, nor has any desire to be fulfilled through them. Akruta means that even though he does not perform his occupational duty, he is not at fault. There is no jiva in the universe, either moving or non-moving, who can act as a suitable shelter for him and help him attain his purpose. The word Vipashraya has been described in the Purana as follows. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Udbhavatam Nanam Jnana Vairagya Vidyanam Nahi Kashyat Vipashraya. A person endowed with devotion to Bhagavan Vasudeva does not take shelter of knowledge, renunciation and strength, but moreover it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 4.2.18 Yad apashraya ashraya shuddhanti, a living entity becomes purified merely by taking shelter of those who are surrendered to Shri Bhagavan. Sarada Vashini Prakashika Purti. A person who derives pleasure exclusively within the self does not achieve piety by performing his abilities, not as become implemented in the skin. Responsibilities, nor does he become integrated in scenes by performing them. For him, both moving and non-moving, beginning with Lord Brahma, remains absorbed in enjoying material happiness, identifying the body with the self. Their every action is performed for sense gratification. But the self-satisfied, saintly persons who are free from desire are completely beyond the self-interest of material sense gratification. They do not even care for knowledge and renunciation, which are the natural shelter of the initiates. This is because they have taken shelter of bhakti, devotion to the Supreme Lord. It is the natural function of the self. Knowing knowledge and renunciation manifest in them as a matter of course, since both are subordinate to bhakti. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11 and to second to 32nd, 42nd verse, Kavi speaks to Maharaj Nemi. Bhakti parishan va vyaktir annatar yatikat kala prapatya manasya sathashnasu tushti pushtikshad paranu bhasam. With each mouthful of food that a hungry person takes, the effects are simultaneously accomplished. He obtains satisfaction, is nourished, and his hunger ceases. Similarly, surrendered souls who are engaged in performance of bhajan simultaneously experience three effects of the awakening of the devotion to Bhagavan, which ultimately develops into prema or pure love to him. Direct manifestation of Bhagavan's blood form and detachment from negative from material objects. One may raise the following question. In the Vedas it is said, Tasmad Isham Tanna Priya Yad Etan Manushya Vidhu. The demigods do not want human beings to attain knowledge of the Supreme. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam, knowing that Brahmanas will surpass them by taking sannyas, knowing that Brahmanas will surpass them by taking sannyas by obtaining knowledge of the truth of the Supreme, the demigods, and have taken birth to become their wives or children and create obstacles on their path. It thus stop to worship the demigods to eliminate these obstacles. In this regard, the Shruti state that even though the demigods present the objects and they are in fact unable to harm the spiritual experience, in this regard, the Shrutis state that even though the demigods present these obstacles, they are in fact unable to harm the spiritual experience because Atma himself protects them. This Atma is the self of all selves, Paramatma. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Mukha, Vasudeva para Yogi, Vasudeva para Kriya. Bhagavatam 1.2.13. According to this statement, Vasudeva Krishna is the original soul of all the souls. By worshiping him, one can gain the perfection of everyone. All the demigods are ultimately compelled to show affection and respect to those who have forgotten bhakti. In addition, it is stated, Bhaktistu Bhagavad Bhakta Sangena Parijayate. One attains bhakti only by the association of the devotees of Bhagavan. This statement of scripture means that just as for the developed devotees, Shri Bhagavan is the only center. If one desires devotion to him, it is necessary to take shelter of his. Yastadeva para bhakti yatha deve tatha guru. Tasyaite paritaya artha prakashante mahatmana. All the hidden meanings of Shrutis are revealed only in the form of that great soul who has the highest transcendental devotion for Sri Bhagavan and also his representatives, Sri Gurudev. It's a very important verse. नैव तस्य कृतिनार्थो. नैव तस्य कृतिनार्थो. Next verse. तस्मादसक्ता सत्वं कार्यं कर्म समाचर. असक्तो हि आचरण कर्म परम आप्नोति पुरुषः. Tasmat, therefore, akshatah, without attachment, satam, always, karyam, that which ought to be done, karma, samachara, perform nicely, asakta, without attachment, he, because, acharan, performing, karma, prescribed duties, parama, liberation, apnoti, attains, purusha, man. Therefore, always perform your prescribed without attachment. By working in this way, a person attains liberation from the end of cycle of birth and death. Sarvashmi. Only Arjuna, you are not qualified to be on the platform of jnana, but since you are a man of proper wisdom, you have more qualification than to perform selfish, fruitive action, karma. Therefore, perform selfless, nishkam karma yoga. The verse beginning with Tasmat is spoken for this reason. Karja means that which is preached as an obligatory duty. After performing that prescribed duty, one attains supreme liberation. Tarartha Varshini Prakashika Vritti. By always performing selfless action, the heart becomes purified. When the practitioner's heart is purified, he attains jnana by which he can attain liberation. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, while engaging in karma, one attains transcendental bhakti, which is the mature state of karma yoga. This has been called liberation here. So next verse. Tasmat Satta, so we read this one. कर्मण्यैः संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादया लोकसङ्ग्रहम् एवापि समपश्यन् कर्तुम् अर्हसि. By work eva, even he certainly samsiddhim, imperfection, asthita, situated, Janak Adayo, Janak and other kings, Loka Sangraham. Yes, studying Ramayana. So also the parents of Srila Goswami Maharaj, Bhakti Saran Goswami Maharaj, you offer Shraddha Pushpanjali sweet. So Karmani Vahi Samsiddhim, Asthita Janakarya, Loka Sangram Evati, Samshram Pashyan Kartumadasi. Karmana by work, eva, even he certainly, Samsiddhim in perfection, Ashrita, situated, Janakarya, the Janak and other kings, Loka Sangraham, the people in general, eva, also Sampashyan, considering Kartub to act, Rasti, you deserve. Even kings like Janaka and others attain the perfectional stage of performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Kings like Janaka and others were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Performed all prescribed duties just to set example for people in general. Janak was the father of Sita. So kings like Janaka and others were all self-realized. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed duties just to set example for the people in general. Janak was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Ram. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendently situated, but because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach the subjects how to fight righteously in battle. He and his subjects fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary. In the situation where good arguments fell, before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verses. There is a necessity for fighting. The one who is situated in so far so there is the right cause, there is necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still wants to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced, experienced person in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow. And this is explained in the following verse. यद्यत् आचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत् एवेतरो जनाः स्वयप्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तवर्तते. Yat whatever acharati he does, a respectable leader, that that alone was certainly itarahan common jana persons. Saha he yet whichever that Anuvarta they follow in the footsteps. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And what standards he sets by example acts, all the world pursues. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. One who teaches in that way is called Acharya or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to reach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles, revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader should be based on the principles of the standard rules and they are anticipated by the general teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king of the. The king of the executive head of our state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders. In general, all such natural leaders have a great responsibility. Therefore, they must become conversant with standalone books um, and spiritual codes. This is the purport here, 3.21. We will read Bhaktivedanta Srila Gurudev's purport. So here, Sarada Bhashri Prakashika Bhakti, a person who derives pleasure exclusively within the self does not achieve piety by performing his performing his duties. He becomes implicated in sin by not performing them. Every jiva, both moving and non-moving, beginning with Lord Brahma, remains absorbed in enjoying material happiness due to the misconception of identifying the body with the self. Every action is performed for self-gratification, self-enjoyment. But the self-satisfied saintly persons free from the desire are completely beyond the self-interest of material self-gratification. They do not even care for knowledge and renunciation, which are the natural, is a natural shelter of the relations. This is because, which is the natural function of the self. Knowledge and renunciation manifest in them as a result of course. Since both are subordinate to bhakti. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 42nd verse, Sri Kavi speaks to Maharaj. With each mouthful of food that a hungry person takes, three effects are simultaneously accomplished beyond him. He obtains satisfaction. He is nourished and his tongue and his hunger ceases. Similarly, surrendered soul who are engaged in the performance of bhajan simultaneously experience three effects. Number one, awakening of devotion to Bhagavan, which ultimately develops into innate prema or pure love for him, or direct manifestation of Bhagavan's beloved form and detachment from material objects. You may raise the following question. Is the Veda, it is said, Tasmad Esham Prapanyas Priyam Yad Etam Manushya Vidu. The demigods do not want human beings to attain knowledge of the Supreme. That Aranya Upanishad 4.1.10. It is also seen in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, 13th verse. Viprasaya vai sannyas deva Viprasaya vai sannyasto deva daradi rupinam vignan kurvanti ayam hi asman akramya samiyeta. Knowing that the Brahmanas will surpass them by taking sannyas and obtaining knowledge of the truth of the Supreme, the demigods take birth to become their wives or children and create obstacles on their path. In this regard, the Shruti state that even though the demigods present these obstacles, they are in fact unable to harm the spiritual experience. Because Atma himself protects them. This Atma is the self of all selves, Paramatma. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya. According to this statement, Vasudeva and Krishna is the original soul of all other souls. By worshipping him as one can By worshipping him, one can gain the affection of everyone. All the demigods are ultimately compelled to show affection and respect to those who have Krishna Bhakti. Instead, Bhaktista Bhagavad Bhakti Sangena Parijayate Sapti Prabhi Suputi Karo Sanchite. One attempts bhakti only by the association of devotees of Bhagavan. These statements of scripture means that just as for the devotees of Bhagavan, these statements of scriptures means that just as for the devotees, Shri Bhagavan is the only suitable step. If one to take shelter is Upanishad. So, for this reason, Shetashabha Upanishad says, Yestadeva Paramabhakti Yathadeva Garo, Tasete Katita Yata Prakashandi Mahatmana. All the hidden meanings of the Shrutis are revealed only in the heart of that great soul who has the highest transcendental devotion for Shri Bhagavan and also his representative Shri Gurudev. So here we discuss this verse, then Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, you can see that very, very important scriptures. Krite Guna Samudha. We discussed this verse actually. 18. Forward. कर्मण्य ही संसिद्धिम आस्थिता जनकादया लोक संग्रहमपि एवापि संपश्यन् कामः. So karmana, by work, eva, even he certainly samsiddhim in perfection, aspita, situated, janakadaya, janakadar kings, loka sangraham, the people are in general, eva api, sampashyan, considering kartum, act, arasi you deserve. Even kings like Janak and others attain the perfectional state of performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Kings like Janak and others were self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janak was the father of Sita and father-in-law Lord Sri Ram. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendentally situated. But because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to fight righteously in battle. He and his subjects thought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in the situation where good arguments fail. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the other party was determined to fight. So for such a right cause, there is a necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still wants to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will focus. And this is explained in the following verses. So, these are the important verses going on. So we'll carry on next time. These verses. Hare Krishna. Vansakapatra Vaishikapasini Vajapartanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Dhanavad pranams.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dhanavad pranams. Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much. So Maharaj, you stopped at 3.20.
Yeah, yes. 3.20. We'll discuss next time these verses in detail. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Dhanavad.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Dhani. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhar Vika Girdhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Vyarthi ki Jai. Jai Vitala Prashtadet Guru Shishan Bhaktirand Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Tula Vrishtam Vishnupā Shishan Bhaktirand Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Tula Vrishtam Vishnupā Shishan Bhaktirand Trivikram Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. इला वृष्णम विष्णुपाद श्री श्रीमद गौरविंद गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। इला वृष्णम विष्णुपाद श्री श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज की जय। आचार्य के श्री श्री श्रीमद भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। मिथिला वैष्णव विष्णुपाद श्री श्रीमद भक्ति साधन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। तदीय शुभायुवाद के महामहोत्सव की जय। श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से को श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी गो गोवर्धन द्वार शिवनात्मक से मंडल की जय। गंगा जमुना से भक्त देवी की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुरसिंह चक्रजीव की जय। सर्वविघ्न विनाशन भक्त विघ्न विनाशन सिंह भगवान की जय। भक्त ऋषि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। रेड्डी स्वामी शिष्यन भक्तिदान दंडी महाराज जी की जय। नामनिष्ठ संत शरणदास प्रभु जी की जय। मठेर से वृंद की जय। धामवासी भक्त वृंद की जय। समागत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौर चितनाथ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि जय। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर अटेंडिंग द क्लास। हरे कृष्ण। हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण।
श्रीपद भक्तिवेदांत विष्णु देव महाराज की जय। वंश
जय धन्यवाद। कृपा सिंधु जपत्यानां भावने देव वैष्णव देव नमः। जय। थैंक यू जय विशाखा जी की जय। समस्त वैष्णव की जय। धन्यवाद। थैंक यू। हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण। थैंक यू मच।
हरे।
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you all for joining today. Sorry, Chididi, I'm not sure if you had a question, but I think Maharaj just died, so he left. But we'll see you all tomorrow for Madhurya Kadamini, and then you can ask if you did have a question. Sorry about that. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams. See you all tomorrow for Madhurya Kadamini.